everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited today. We are here talking about the latest film from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're talking about Spider-Man Far From Home, and this is going to be a spoiler podcast. And today, I'm very excited to have a very special guest. My friend Zach Pope is here. And Zach, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad we can finally do a podcast together. I know we've kind of talked about other ideas, but talking about Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, so this is going to be quite a bit of fun, even though I know we'll have differing opinions on certain things. But that's what's great about film, is differing opinions and talking about it and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm really excited too because I don't know. I felt I've seen the film twice, and I just felt like are other people are just clearly seeing things that I'm not seeing, and so I'm curious to listen and to learn kind of what other people are getting that I'm not getting. And it's not that I thought it was the worst movie ever, but I'm just hearing people put it above Into the Spider-Verse, putting it above Spider-Man 2, and I'm just kind of like, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? So I'm very curious to talk with you.
Yeah.
And why don't you introduce yourself to the podcast and your channel and what you do?
Well, so for people who don't know me, my name is Zach. I've been reviewing for like 3.5 years now over on Zach Pope Reviews, and I also do reviews for like Sandwich on Films, which is a website that actually gives out advanced movie screenings. So like people always ask, how do we see movies early? That's how I started, was like going through that website to get movies early. So if you want to check out movies early, go check it out. But yeah, I've been reviewing movies, and I just love talking about movies. Like that's my thing, is that like I didn't have friends to talk about movies with, and the friends I did, they would make bets about like, oh, when's he going to bring up a movie? Because he's always talking about movies. And so I started a YouTube channel to talk about movies. So that's kind of me. And now I've met people like you and others who also love movies alike. So it's really fun to talk about it. And that's what people need to understand, is even though if people don't like some things about a movie, it doesn't mean we didn't hate it. So
Yeah. I definitely relate to a lot of what you're saying. I got a comment on my review. We were talking about it earlier, that on my blog, saying, can't you just enjoy the movie? Can't you just, and especially now that I'm on Rotten Tomatoes, like this is kind of my job. Like it's part-time right now, but it's my job to go to the movie and to watch it and to have a response. Like if I just go saying like, and don't have any kind of critical analysis of what I'm watching, I'm not doing my job. I'm not, and not that I'm just some bland kind of person who doesn't enjoy things. I enjoy lots of things. In fact, I've enjoyed a lot of the Marvel movies, the MCU. I'm in general a defender of the MCU, in fact, but I can't fake it and pretend to like something that I don't like.
No, and I totally get what you're saying. I mean, like, there are certain movies that hit us a little bit better than others, and some movies that do better for us than others. Like, and Spider-Man Far From Home, I mean, like, some of like what we're gonna get into, like, you're not the only one that feels that way. Like, I know other people who feel that way. So it really just depends on how a film hits you, and this will be a fun discussion. So
yeah, like I'm not just trying to be a contrarian. Like that's a waste of everyone's time. I am just trying to be honest and authentic about what I think about film, and a lot of people were really upset about my Shazam review, but that was how I responded, and I tried to articulate it as well as I can. And
which is funny. You know what's funny about your Shazam review is, so when I saw the film, I love Shazam because it really was like the character I wanted from when I was a kid. But the thing with your review, though, is that like a lot of other people felt the same way you did. Like, and actually watching a review, which is the best thing about watching other reviews, is like you said, it is not for kids. And in my review, I actually said, oh, this is a great family film. Then when I thought, the way that you put it, I was like, no, she is actually right. Like this movie, if I would have seen it when I was like 5 or 6, I would have been terrified. So it's cool seeing other people's perspectives, because then it makes you think on other things,
Yeah,
So
I agree. Yeah. I mean, that's why I've been really interested in people that like this better than Into the Spider-Verse, because that was such a brilliant movie, in my opinion.
yeah.
So, because I'm curious about why, and I'm curious about so, you shouldn't just say what's popular. And I mean, if that's your approach on a YouTube channel, either approach, if your approach is, I'm just going to be contrarian and hate everything, you're not going to last very long. And if your approach is, I'm just going to say what's ever popular, then you're also not going to last very long. Like, you have to be authentic and say what you think and try to
Yeah,
defend it as well as you can. That's all
yeah,
we can do.
absolutely. And maybe get some crap along the way. Like, it's funny. I remember the first review I ever did. I really liked the new Ghostbusters, and I got crapped on. Like, I had literally just started, and like people were messaging me like, "How dare you like this?" Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Like, I I didn't say it was a masterpiece. I just said I liked it. Like,
Right. Me too.
so it's funny how it works like that, and people just everyone has their own opinion. Like, I'm sure there's movie like every time someone comments, I'm like, I guarantee there's a movie that you love that I absolutely hate, and almost everyone else hates. So
Yeah.
get over it.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah, there's even people who don't like my favorite movie, which is Your Name. But I
people
don't
die.
understand those people, but it's okay.
Dude, your name is incredible.
It's so good.
So
I love it.
it's amazing.
Just saying,
So
we can all be friends. It's all good.
yeah, absolutely. And people who don't like your name must be a little bit crazy because that's like an like top tier like movie. And if you're talking about anime, it's probably like top 5 anime films
Yeah,
ever
for
made. So.
sure. I know a lot of people didn't respond to Wonder Woman like I did, but I absolutely loved Wonder Woman.
And I'm
So
one of those ones that I really
yeah.
like Wonder Woman too. So
Yeah, it's fun. So anyway, yeah, that's just something. It's an interesting thing. So, how did you feel? Well, in general, what is your overall sort of take on the MCU? Are you in general a fan? Are you kind of hit and miss with it? What is your feeling about the MCU?
so it's funny when the MCU started. I love the first Iron Man. Love the first Iron Man. Like I remember my grandma took me and my best friend to go see it, and it really because me and my friend me and my friend have seen every single MCU film together, and
Oh,
so it's like
fun.
pretty much been a journey for us, and that's actually how like our friendship formed was like talking about comic book heroes and whatnot. But so my grandma took us, and like I mean, the first Iron Man really blew us away. And then it's weird. A lot of the Phase 1 movies I didn't love. Like the first Thor, pretty low on my list. Iron Man
Hmm.
2, pretty low on my list. Not saying that they're not fun. Like I can watch them for fun, but I never gravitate to go rewatch them. And then the first Captain America I actually think is a little bit underrated, but still, it's not a film I gravitate to go watch again. It didn't take till that first Avengers film that really like I was like, this is awesome. Like connecting all these universes and pushing it through. And now like I mean, like me at that age, like now thinking back and looking, I'm like, damn, I would never imagine that we have Avengers Endgame now, or like stuff like that. Like stuff that I would read is now on the big screen, and it's like really weird. But overall, I really like the MCU. And actually, after Endgame, I was in the camp that was like, I'm like, honestly, I don't ever need to see another film in this franchise. Like I'll see them, but I'm like not getting overly hyped anymore because I felt like that was the perfect conclusion. But Far From Home kind of changed that. I went in with like, I know this is gonna be a good movie. Like hands down, it's gonna be a good Spider-Man movie. It's gonna be a good MCU film. But I walked out like more blown away, and I think more blown away by the fact of I'm actually really excited for the future of the MCU now, especially with the end credit scene, and just the possibilities. I'm not expecting like every other film to kind of blow me away like this one did, like the Black Widow or the Eternals movie next year, but it truly the MCU I think is such a unique thing, and as long as they can keep making movies that are good and to a higher quality, and hopefully just don't fall into that mill of just turning out sequel, but keep doing the same thing that they're doing with like say Ant-Man, how it's Ant-Man's a heist film, or you go to Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange is kind of like a weird mix of horror and magic, and just kind of making stuff different. I'm all for that, and it looks like that's kind of what they're continuing.
Yeah, I had kind of a similar experience. I liked Iron Man,
Mm-hmm.
the original Iron Man, and then I was just not into it. And then I kind of was turned off of superhero movies for a little while because I saw Green Lantern and I hated
I
it.
never finished.
It was so bad, and it was I just I was like this is
Well,
just not for
and
me.
that's how my dad is. My dad does hate superhero movies. Like
Yeah.
I think the last one I actually got him to watch was Deadpool, and he really liked Deadpool because it was kind of making fun of the whole superhero genre.
Uh-huh.
And then he tried watching Avengers Infinity War, gave up. He's like, it's too long. Can't watch it. I don't know who this is. Who's this wizard guy? Who's this? And then
Yeah.
he's seen like the Guardians, but he doesn't count them as superhero films because he's like, they're not superheroes. It's just a space movie. I'm like, okay. I mean, you're kind of right on that part.
Yeah.
But no, I like it. Like Green Lantern kind of ruined that for a lot of people.
Yeah, Green Lantern was so bad. And I was just like, and there were a bunch right around that same time. There was like, I feel like I mean, I guess Catwoman was way earlier, but there was just a bunch there was like the Green Hornet, there was like all these terrible movies all within a short period of time. And I was like, these are not for me. And so there were just a bunch that I didn't even see. And
Hmm.
my friends, when the Avengers came out, they were like, "You got to see it. It's so amazing. It was so great." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to see it," because this was long before I was reviewing movies or anything like
Yeah.
that. And so I waited, and then finally it was on DVD, and they were like, "You got to see it. You got to see it. You got to see it." I'm like, "Fine." And so I put it on, and I was just like, this was great. And I hadn't even seen Thor. I hadn't even seen Captain America. I hadn't even,
Hmm.
and I still just thought it was so funny. I thought it was so just, I loved Loki from the very minute that I saw him. He was so great as a villain. I loved the script, was just so fun. And I just love the original Avengers so much. And so that kind of got me on board. And then I think especially 2014 was just such an amazing year for the MCU with Captain America Winter Soldier and Guardians of the
Guardians.
Galaxy. And so, that got me really excited. And yeah, I feel like for the most part, they're even the ones that I am not that I'm not fresh on, I still don't think are like horrible. I don't think the MCU has made a Batman and Robin, Superman 4, you know what I mean, like a Catwoman. I don't think they've had a turkey like that.
No, I think the lowest quality I think they've made is just an okay film. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's
just this is an okay movie. Like I'm never gonna rewatch this.
yeah.
And I think that's what's so special about them is that a lot of franchises usually have one or two already. That's like, yeah, this is not a good movie. Like
I
you look at the X-Men franchise, there's quite a few in there that are not a good movie. So
yeah. Right, exactly. And I think what's so impressive about what Kevin Feige does over in Marvel is that he absolutely knows who he knows what his movies are. And that's like the hardest thing in life, period, is to know what you are and execute it well. And I think in any kind of business and any kind of anything in life, like to just to and I feel like a lot of other franchises have really struggled to try to kind of figure out what they are, what their brand is, and then just execute it well. And so like each director is kind of responsible for sort of reinventing the wheel. And I know that excites some people, but I feel like it kind of ends up with sort of cluttered all over the place. There's not that direction. I feel
yeah,
like what Kevin Feige is able to do with Marvel is he's able to say to these directors, here's your kit, here's all the pieces. Now go and add your creativity, go and add your flair, go and add your, and that to me makes good films. And I think that that I don't know, like I admire the ambition in some of these other franchises, but I feel like it can be a frustrating experience and they can just feel bloated. And I don't know. When each director is responsible for for completely reinventing every franchise, and I definitely
yeah,
think the case with Star Wars for sure. And
yeah.
so I don't know. It's an interesting thing.
Well, you're making a lot of good points, and I think the thing with Kevin Feige, the one word to go around him is he's organized. Like this guy
Yeah.
has a plan. He knows what he's doing. That's like my big thing with like any other franchise trying to do these cinematic universes. It's like they don't establish it. They always try to rush it. And like whether it's the dark universe, and then they just tried putting so much into that Mummy movie, and then it kind of just felt bloated. Like then you look at the DCEU, which I've liked almost all their films. Like I like
Hmm.
except Suicide Squad alone. I like all of them. I think they're good. To
Hmm.
some are really great, like say Wonder Woman. But my thing is like again, their problem was it felt bloated. They're just trying to get to Justice League. They were trying to get past that and move forward and catch up the MCU. And I'm like, you're just rushing it.
Yeah. I mean, he's like people complain about the Edgar Wright thing, and it's like with Marvel, and he's the only one that's really had that kind of problem with. I guess you could say Avengers Age of Ultron, maybe with Joss in that one.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that with Edgar Wright, like he wasn't willing to play ball in the MCU at all. Like and I
Yeah.
think they basically parted amicably. Like I think everybody else made kind of a bigger deal of that than they actually it actually was as far as a creative experience. I mean, he had just gotten on the whole project so early, and so you have to be willing to play ball in the franchise that you're in. If you're just making like that's just of course, like what? Of course that's the
Yeah.
case. And so, but that's really the only one. I mean, you look at the directors that they've been able to get, somebody like Ryan Coogler, somebody like it, that they've gotten really great talent. And I think that they've all sort of added their own little flares, like you said. Anyway, so it's a really impressive thing to me, and I absolutely loved Endgame. I thought it was so good. I love time travel stories, so it was just really fun to me, and seeing all these characters, and I thought it was so emotionally true. And so coming here, how did you feel about Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming?
Okay, so Homecoming, I'm this thing with Spider-Man is like I will enjoy all their films. I
Mm-hmm.
know they're not all good. I know there's some bad ones, but the thing with all the franchises, so Sam Raimi, I liked it. I liked most of them. I think Spider-Man 2 is really good, but I've never been gravitated to go rewatch them. Like I'll rewatch them, but it's never like I have to rewatch this. I have to rewatch this. Andrew Garfield's were kind of the same way. These are good, somewhat, maybe
Mm-hmm.
bad, partsly, but I'm not gravitating to it. So when Spider-Man Homecoming came out, I was really looking forward to it because of Civil War. Civil War, I mean, that Spider-Man introduction was awesome. I went into Homecoming and really enjoyed it. Like I love it. It's probably the Spider-Man film I've actually rewatched the most, surprisingly. I just think it's so charming, and I love the John Hughes feel that it was going for. And it was such a smaller-esque film, and especially with Vulture, what they did with him. I hate the Vulture character in the comics, and they made me fall in love with Vulture and what they had with Michael Keaton in there. So I really liked Homecoming. It wasn't a perfect film. I think I I'm not a big fan of how they were making him so much Iron Man Jr. in it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I think Far From Home kind of exceeded that a bit for me because it was more moving past Tony Stark. But Homecoming I liked. I liked it for sure. I love a lot of aspects about it, and it really like cemented Tom Holland as this hero. And I think it was funny. It was a fun Marvel film for sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed Homecoming. I feel like it's actually gotten better for me because I felt like it was the hyperbole was very strong on it when it first came out, and I was like, it wasn't that good, but it was good. I liked it, and I don't know. And sometimes that can sort of affect you a little bit when you hear that kind of thing. But it was good. I liked it. I liked that teen feel. And I the thing about the Tony Stark part of it that I actually really enjoyed is that it was nice to see Tony back as Tony,
Yeah.
that because he had been so, ever since Iron Man 3, he had been so sort of morose and sad and, kind of a thing. And I kind of appreciated getting back that sort of
I'm with you on
thing.
that.
Yeah, that was nice. And I do think that they have such nice chemistry, Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. So that was nice. And yeah, some of the action was bland.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. The first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool action." Then I thought about it. I'm like, "But there's like zero web slinging." Like, I
Yeah,
get it. It's
yeah,
like his first year or so as Spider-Man, but it's like he's supposed to be web slinging around. And I mean, we'll talk about Far From Home's web slinging. I thought that was really cool what they did with it. But Homecoming, it's like I get what they were going for the character, and I really love that part. There's some things that I have like issues like upon rewatch, but like it is pretty high on my list. It's like top 10 for me for the MCU. And
oh,
I mean,
interesting. Yeah,
I just love the Spider-Man character, and this iteration of him is like what I grew up on. So like
yeah,
this is what I read. So it's like page two movie like accuracy for me.
yeah. And I think that this is the best version of Spider-Man. As far
Mhm.
as the character, I really like Tom Holland's portrayal. There's a vulnerability there. There's a sweetness there that I think really works in the character. And I don't know. I didn't really like Andrew Garfield, even though he's a good actor, because to me there was always sort of a smugness to his portrayal. particularly Peter Parker, that I don't know, just wasn't my thing.
So
I
I
didn't
put it
like
this:
that.
I love Toby's Peter Parker. I don't love his Spider-Man.
Hmm.
Andrew, I like his Spider-Man more than his Peter Parker, and then
Yeah.
Tom Holland, I think, is the best mix of both.
I think that's true. And so, yeah, so I liked, and I agree about the Vulture. It was very strong, and overall, it was a sweet, fun movie. And I liked, I certainly gave it a, gave it fresh. I liked Homecoming,
Yeah,
and so I was pretty excited coming to this movies, Far From Home, especially with what happened in with going on with Infinity War, and then in Endgame. And I thought the trailers were pretty strong. And I think there are some things that I really liked in the movie. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 10. So it was, there was, it wasn't like I completely trashed it. But I liked all of the stuff with Tom Holland and the teens. I,
yeah,
and I thought they were really funny, charming. I actually liked Flash this time because he was so annoying to
me
me
too.
in Homecoming. I didn't.
And they had small things in there that kind of got you to understand him more.
Mhm.
Like, everything that they kind of like hint at with his parents and whatnot. I actually really like that they did those subtle things with certain characters, whether it's MJ, and I mean, I really love their relationship.
Yeah.
It's adorable, and it really is like perfected, like their chemistry and just like, but the stuff that they do like subtly with MJ or Ned or Betty or, and even like you said, Flash, it makes you like them more. Where in
Yeah.
Homecoming, like I hated Flash. I was like, this is like the most annoying Flash Thompson in the world. And Ned, I mean, I love Ned. He's the best friend that anyone should have in their life. And
Mhm.
but it really furthered out a lot of those. And even same with MJ. I mean, I did not like, I love Zendaya. I think she's a really good actress, but I really did not care for her in Homecoming. I'm like, this is really annoying. And in this one, liked her a lot more. I fell in love with her character, in fact.
Mhm. I did too. I really liked this version of, this character, MJ. I thought that she was funny. I thought they had good chemistry, and it definitely that worked for me. One thing that I think is interesting is that people seem to think it's such a big deal that Spider-Man isn't going to be a secret identity in the MCU, but I don't really understand that, to be honest, because yeah, I know he is in the comics, but nobody in the MCU is secret. No one. There's not a single character, and like Bruce Banner in the comics the Hulk is, it's a secret identity, but not in the MCU. He's like taking selfies with people. Like that's just not a thing in the
Yeah.
MCU. And so to me, it would be weird if Spider-Man is the one that everybody's like, oh, don't tell anybody. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so the way I look at it is like, okay, so I'm with you. Like, I mean, the MCU is like, oh, you have a secret identity? Nah, you're good with that. We're just gonna reveal it to everyone right
Yeah,
away.
that's
So that
yeah.
ending, I guess we should just talk about the end credit scene because
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where a lot of people were like, oh my god, and it wasn't just because of J.K. Simmons coming back, which that was a I was blown away by
Yeah,
that
that was
because
fun.
I really did not see that coming. I thought it was gonna be like a Norman Osborn type thing because my guess is Norman Osborn's gonna be like portrayed by like a Matthew McConaughey type level actor, and I
Yeah.
was waiting for that to happen. I'm like, okay, so they're not going Osborn, but then you see J.K. and it's perfect. I really hope that's not a one-off. I hope the next Spider-Man we get more of J.K. Simmons, just like small glimpses of like
Yeah.
listening. He's like a podcaster in a sense, but so with that ending, of course, you see the news. Mysterio, let's be honest, he's probably not dead. Is he? They're not going to kill off Jake Gyllenhaal in one movie. I mean, I hope not because I really like Mysterio. But so
Nobody's really dead in Marvel,
yeah,
right?
yeah, you're right about that. No one ever really dies. Just waiting for them to bring Tony Stark back with
I
the multi
know. It,
10
it
years from now.
it will happen
It
eventually.
will.
It will, whether it's a flashback or whatever. There's yeah. Anyway.
But so then this whole thing where he goes, "Oh, we have his actual identity, blah blah blah. It's Peter Parker," and then he goes, "What the?" So I think the reason it's maybe not particularly important to the MCU, but particularly important to his character is because he's a kid. And
Mhm.
I think he sees how Tony, like, I think he's looked at like the other heroes and how, a sense, like Tony, everyone knows his identity. So that kind of puts Pepper Potts in what's the word? In trouble all the time. And
Mhm.
it kind of just goes for all those characters. But I think for him, it's like his one worry is protecting it from everyone he loves, so other people don't find out. And he, in a sense, I think it's always been a major part of his story, even though there are comic iterations where he reveals himself. And especially, I think the reason going into this, whatever they do with the next Spider-Man film, is now that everyone knows that he's Spider-Man, everyone knows he's Peter Parker, and now it's going to also add that, I mean, in a sense, everyone kind of looked at Spider-Man as just a hero, but now there's going to be people who look at him as a menace and a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are going to believe it, some people are not going to believe it. And it's going to add a certain perspective to Peter Parker, because let's admit, he's not going to get arrested or anything. You know what I mean? Like Shield, like they know what happened. They are the ones that know. He's probably going to still need something. I know there's actually some iterations of Peter Parker needing a lawyer, which is why some people are talking about Daredevil maybe coming in with the next one. Because by 2021,
you could have she's a
She-Hulk
lawyer.
would be cool. And that's another one that I was thinking. I was like, that's two characters that you could seamlessly throw in there because they're lawyers and they're not like high attorneys either. You know, they're gonna need something, but I think that's something cool that they could throw in. And plus, by 2021, they can actually use the Daredevil character again.
Uh-huh.
Whether they want to use Charlie Cox or if they want to go a new way, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think it opens up Spider-Man to more possibilities. And I guess the big rumor is right now that they want to do a 9 arc with Spider-Man. 3 in high school, 3 in college, 3 as an adult. Now, I don't know if they're all going to be great, but as someone like who grew up reading these comics and like Spider-Man was like literally the comic I read,
yeah,
I'm all for that. If they can do a 9 arc movie with Peter Parker and Tom Holland as Peter Parker, I'm all in for it. Like, as long as they're all good and as long as they're progressing his character, I think that's the strongest part about both these films is like the progression of him as a character.
Yeah, I can see why the end reveal of that Peter Parker is Spider-Man is like a big deal because he's a teenager and whatever. But I don't understand why people were freaking out about the fact that he revealed who he was to MJ. I think the whole idea that the people closest to these superheroes don't know the secret identity always felt a little phony. And I think that that in the original Superman movies, it's understandable because they're kind of campy and they kind of lean into that, so it's fine. But I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Like if you're dating this person and like the only difference is they have glasses and then or a mask or something. I mean, it's just and especially if you're in a world in the MCU where superheroes, people like if you really lived in this world, like superheroes would be kind of like okay, like more normal. It wouldn't be as big a deal as they would be it now, like in our world. Like, I mean, there's so many in here. And they're so frequent in their, what they're doing and everything. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it totally makes sense within the world of the MCU that he would be revealed and then he would be able to deal with it. And it just, I don't know. I feel like people have made way too big a deal of that.
Well, no, yeah, and you bringing up MJ knowing, I think that's the smartest thing, because the biggest thing I have is where you watch a show or a movie, and he's always trying to find his identity, and he's always trying to hide it, and then there's always that relationship issue that they have because she doesn't understand why he's going off all the time. It's just like, just say it. Just say it. You know what I mean? Just say that you are Spider-Man, or you are the Flash, or something like that. Like, just make it easy on us. Let's not have these dumb problems.
Yeah, and people are like, why is Aunt May so blasé about him being a superhero? I'm like, they live in this world of superheroes. Of course. It's a different world in the MCU. People, I don't know. That's what I think, at least. So that was interesting to me to see people were very upset when that trailer came out and she's acknowledging that he's Spider-Man, and I'm like, of course she does. She's not stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so with you on that. No, you're making up the best points.
So I really liked Tom Holland as the character. I liked all the stuff with the teens. I thought that was all really fun and funny, and but I didn't think it was as funny as Homecoming. And I have to say, my nieces also didn't think it was as funny as Homecomings, but humor is.
I agree with that though. I thought Homecoming was more funny, but it didn't like really bother me too much with the
Mm-hmm.
jokes personally. So like, I mean, the one thing about Spider-Man: Far From Home is the one thing I wanted them to do right was Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
Mysterio is my favorite comic book villain, and when they announced him, I'm like, how are you gonna do this? How are you gonna do this? And then they got
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal, and I'm like, okay, you got a really talented actor as Mysterio. And from what they did in this movie for Mysterio is like kind of the reason why this film is so high for me is
Yeah.
because I I just can't believe they actually did it. They did the fishbowl and the illusions and like the set pieces in this film are like some of the like coolest I think in any Spider-Man film, like right up there with Spider-Verse as well. Like the way that the visual, just thinking about this is like the way that the visual effects are now today, the way that you can actually do these sequences and like really like make you trip out on them. It's just
Uh-huh.
very unique. And I think my favorite one in the whole thing though is the Peter Tinkle one, where he uses his Peter Tinkle or spider senses to just destroy all those drones and get to Mysterio. And that's something that like I've been wanting for so long is for like Spider-Man to have to embrace that Spidey senses, because I don't think we've actually seen it. We've seen him where he's like, oh, something's flying at me, but he literally went in blind and just used his senses
Mm-hmm.
to tear apart to get to Jake
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal's Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good moments, and I guess maybe I'm hurt a little bit by the fact that I haven't read that particular comic
Mhm.
about Mysterio. I have read some Spider-Man comics, but I don't know. I just felt like so getting into this plan was so like convoluted to me that it was so, and I get it, it's in the comics, but sometimes there's convoluted stuff in comics. I mean, the amount of steps that were needed in order to make this plan all come together was just like ridiculous to me. I mean, he had to ensure that all the illusions would work, first of all, that nobody would be fighting them except for the Avengers. That like are they in a post Endgame world? Are just like the human beings are just not even like trying to defeat these?
Yeah.
Like, is it just like is it just like if there had been like they're taking down some pretty big name spots, it's like where's is there no, I mean, I know in
Military.
Europe and all
You know what I
that
mean? No
their
military
army isn't quite, but I don't know, I was just like, why is nobody in any of these except for trying to fight these except for Spider-Man?
Mhm.
And he had to ensure that none of the other Avengers would come, that he had to ensure that Spider-Man would give over Edith, that Spider-Man would be in the places that he said that he ended up being, and then it just seemed like a lot, and I was just, I don't know, that bothered me. It seemed
Well,
just
no,
convoluted.
I think the plan, like when you look at his plan, you're like, this is a lot. For me though, like I kind of forgive it because that's just how Mysterio is. I think he's like one of the most clever, like I think villains in the comics, and I think a lot of it is just like because there's that one giant exposition dump that Jake Gyllenhaal has. That I think if it wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal, I would have been sitting there like, this is an exposition dump, and I
Yeah.
really don't like this. But it's Jake Gyllenhaal delivering the dialogue, and the way that he's delivering it made it fine for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you are right. I mean, the plan is super convoluted, and I mean, I think we've all watched the movie and we're sitting there and we're like, it's kind of bothered. Like, we've all watched that movie where we're like, I don't know how that would work. And you do make a good sense. Is like, I know he mentioned like before he released the big storm monster at the end, he was like, yep, no Avengers are coming, and it's like, okay, we're good. And it's like, did he do that every time? Did he hope he did? You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things about that maybe the next Spider-Man film
Literally,
will introduce, or the next MCU film might introduce and talk about like why the military isn't getting involved with a lot of this.
like
Um,
literally, if some birds had flown into the illusion,
mhm,
it wouldn't have worked.
yeah.
Not even like superheroes. I don't know. It just seemed like
Well,
this plan.
and
What?
that's what's crazy because his illusions in the comics are a little bit smaller. They're a little bit tinier than that. And like the ones where he's like in a building with Peter Parker and making him hit the walls and stuff like that, those are the ones that I thought like made total sense. The big monsters I'm like whatever on them. I was like, this is just their way to kind of introduce them. But I mean, there's the plan is it's convoluted. It
Yeah.
didn't bother me too much just because personally for me, I thought the time travel thing was a little bit too convoluted in Endgame. Just a
Yeah.
little bit too much.
That's
I had some
fair.
issues with that. So when it comes to these superhero films, there's sometimes where I'm just like, I can't think too much on this, just because. But sometimes it does point out, and you're like, okay, this is an issue, because a film hits every single person in a different type of light, and
It
like when
just
you're watching a film, you're like, yeah, that's kind of dumb.
it just made like as soon as I saw Jake Gyllenhaal's character in the trailer, I was like, oh, he's gonna end up being a turncoat
Yeah,
villain. He's gonna think he's nice, and then he's gonna so all that was so predictable to me, and I was just like, oh, because I feel like it actually would have been kind of interesting if he had had a longer arc of being somebody that Peter trusted instead of immediately being the surprise villain, and so I don't know. It felt it to me. This movie had a little bit of an Iron Man 3 feel, where it felt like, oh, you're just being a little too cute, a little
which is funny. You know,
too.
it's funny. I love Iron Man
Oh,
3.
you did.
So, dude, I loved Iron Man 3, which is weird. The first time I saw the movie, I was like, kind of like, uh. Then I kept rewatching it, and I'm like, I really like this like weird take that they're taking on. And I think that's why me and a couple other friends were talking about how like this film kind of reminds us of Iron Man 3. It does feel like the story direction they take is Iron Man 3-esque. So it's a little weird. And I do actually agree with you. So actually when they announced that he was gonna be teaming up with Spider-Man, I was like, no, I am not in for that at all. And I'm thinking back in my head, I'm like, no, they're gonna make him the villain. And I mean, going in, I was like, he's gonna be the villain. And that second, I remember me and my friend were sitting in the theater, and the second he's like, no, you should take the glasses. Me and my friend were just hitting each other, we're like, you stupid, you're so
Yeah,
stupid.
don't
Like
do.
this is the most obvious thing. Gives him the glasses, and then the whole monologue comes up, and the way that they happen to it, I was like, God. But then like Jake Gyllenhaal in the role is so good, it's like hard for me to be like, I knew it was coming, but it was still so entertaining to see like how he just turned like that. I mean, Jake
Yeah,
Gyllenhaal's
he's great.
top 3 actors. I think he's top 3 actors working today.
Yeah,
So,
he's
but no,
great.
like, yeah,
But just, I mean, especially them bringing back all these random people, I was just like, I don't
a
know.
little too much.
It was too cute.
Which it makes me now think that like if you really think about it, like they're obviously setting up for the Sinister Six for the
Hmm.
Spider-Man. Vulture had issues with Tony Stark. Mysterio had issues with Tony Stark. So obviously the next villain will probably have issues with Tony Stark. And
Yeah.
it seems like that's how they're gonna do is that's my prediction is that the whole Sinister Six will have all had issues with Tony Stark or a different Avengers, and Spider-Man's kind of the one to clean it up now.
Yeah.
Which I mean, as a character story, I actually don't mind that because my guess is that the next Spider-Man film will not deal with the Sinister Six. It'll be like finally setting it up. I think we're gonna get Norman Osborn. I think we're gonna get all that type of stuff. And then the fourth one that they go into when he's going into college will probably tackle the Sinister Six and all of its stuff that's
Yeah, I
going
mean,
on.
I guess I would have liked it much better if him and this other superhero had teamed up to fight these Eternal. Like if that had been the real story, I think that would have been more interesting because this was just to me it was all just very predictable and very bland. And so that was frustrating to me. And the other part of it that didn't make sense to me is that Tony Stark has left these glasses, this Edith for Spider-Man. And there's a couple things. First of all, I feel like he would have put in some kind of failsafe, knowing Peter would probably screw it up, and so there would be something there that
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, I just don't buy that the Tony Stark that we have known since Iron Man 3 would have built this giant space station with all of these droids that because he was all about giving over authority, giving over autonomy. He was all about I mean that was his whole character, and so him doing this secret space station with droids, I was just like, no way, that is not Tony in
Mm-hmm.
since we have seen for a long time. And I don't know. So just on that, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'd like
Mm-hmm.
this.
The only thing that way that I thought about it though was that I was like, there's a 5 year gap that we don't know anything about. There's 5 years of Tony living that we have. The only thing we know is he had a kid and he had a wife, but he was
Hmm.
still working on stuff. So we don't know what his whole perimeter is. Maybe that was him. Maybe he built that in that 5 years or had it built. So he didn't have to be the hero, but if something does come back like a Thanos, he can have it come out. And it's more controlled by, like him in a sense. That's because like we've seen like what happens when he tries to build a drone that can do its own mind tricks and gets its own developments. But that's kind of the way that I viewed it, is that there's it in that 5 years he built stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about those 5 years. And that's actually what I'm really excited about, is that the further of the MCU, I have predictions that certain films will take place in that 5 years. Like I actually think the Black Widow film is taking place in that 5 years.
Oh, really? See, I'm so hopeful with the Black Widow movie because my dream is that it will be about Budapest because it's
Same
a
here. So I
prequel,
think
right?
so. It's a prequel. So it's weird. I think they're gonna go. I think they're gonna show some of this. I think what it's gonna happen is that something in that 5 year gap is gonna relate to Budapest and the past MCU, and that we're gonna see some stuff in the past, but it's also gonna go back and forth. Just kind of how certain spy films have done it. And I
Hmm.
think it's gonna be kind of that homage. Like I think Black Widow is actually gonna be a really unique
Yeah.
take on the character, and the film will probably be really unique itself. But that's actually what I'm hoping for. And plus, I know there's rumors that Jeremy Renner's in the film.
Yeah.
I
Because
don't, I mean, I think it's a mistake if you don't do Budapest. Like,
yeah, because in a Man Called Uncle, when
yes,
they'll have those scenes where where the screen splits and you see
hmm
both sides. That would be amazing because we know that they both see it from totally different perspectives. And so if you had whatever an action scene, or you had other things, and you had a split screen and you see Hawkeye's perspective, and then you see Natasha's
hmm
perspective, that would be so funny because we know that you and I see it very differently. That
hmm
I think that
I
would,
would really like that. I'd like that.
yeah,
But you bring up that really good point on that. Well, yeah, it kind of has to be about Budapest, but also like, I want them to explore those 5 years, because there's a lot in there that I mean, when that happened in Endgame, I was like, oh god, they're going 5 years. I was thinking a couple months, but five
yeah,
years.
it's true.
There's so much, and that's Spider-Man: Far From Home. I think one of the most clever things about the film is how they played with that 5 years, like the blip. How they're always talking about the blip when they showed the footage on the news. Like I love the kids who do the news, and when they
Yeah,
have
that was
the
fun.
basketball game, and then you see everyone disappear, and then they all reappear, and the basketball hits the kid. Or say when Flash is in first class getting drinks, and MJ's like, he got blipped. He's not 21. And they played with it so well that in this post Endgame world, I thought Spider-Man: Far From Home was a really great epilogue to Endgame that for me enhanced Endgame, but also enhanced Infinity War and even enhanced Spider-Man: Homecoming a bit for me. Just Homecoming in the sense that it shows where Peter's character is going, but also Endgame in the way that it's playing around with this world. And I'm curious again to see now where the MCU goes further with a lot of their main characters gone. I mean, a lot of
Hmm.
the characters we followed for so long are gone, and I'd be surprised if they don't make Spider-Man the main one that we now follow throughout the MCU. It'll probably be like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Captain Marvel is what I'm going for.
Hmm. So yeah, so I guess all there are main characters in Spider-Man: Homecoming though were blipped, right? So MJ was blipped
Yeah,
and
everyone was booked
Ned,
except that one kid who grew
yeah.
really big. I don't remember his name particularly,
Yeah,
but yeah.
what was his name? Yeah, anyway, but yeah, the
Oh,
kind
and
of
also the teacher didn't get blipped because he had that funny joke where he's like, "Yeah, my wife faked that she got blipped. We had
oh
a
yeah.
fake and
That was
everything for her
okay.
too." And I was like, "Oh my god."
I don't think that they used JB Smoot well enough. He's such a funny guy.
I
I,
was surprised he wasn't in it more. There was a
yeah,
lot of like when he got casted. I thought, but do you know what I think? I was reading some theories. So, do you remember Hannibal's gym coach teacher from the first one?
Hannibal.
Hannibal, yeah, his name's Hannibal. That's the comedian's name. He was the gym teacher in
Oh,
Homecoming.
okay, yeah.
So there was a lot of things that like he didn't go to the press tours or anything. He hired someone who like looked like him to do it all for him.
Oh, weird.
And he didn't come back for this one. So I actually have a feeling that JP Smoove came in as like a different teacher character, and they just didn't want to bring him back. Like if he wasn't going to do the press, then why bring him back?
Mm.
And I have a feeling that that's kind of why they brought JP Smoove. And I actually am excited to see like because him and Martin Starr's chemistry was really funny when we got it in there. Like I actually really like Mr. Harrington. Even though he's a very kooky teacher, I really like what they do with him, and I'm looking forward to like the more that we get with him and how he's a witchcraft teacher in the next Spider-Man film. Maybe that's a class Peter Parker will take.
Yeah. Yeah, all the student stuff I liked. All the school stuff, all the younger stuff I liked. It was just the villain stuff that I thought was very predictable. It was very convoluted. I don't know. I just didn't think it was that interesting. And like the part that really excited you as far as the illusions, to me, it was kind of video game-ish. So it wasn't my favorite, and because even in Doctor Strange, where it's these psychedelic visuals, there's something about it that felt more grounded to me, because I guess it's coming from the characters in a way, than just these sort of virtual reality sessions.
Yeah, which I totally get. Which I like. I get your perspective on that. I think it was just like that's what I've been wanting, and I think like because you said you hadn't read the comics, so I think it's going to hit people differently. Like if you know the Mysterio character, if like that's something that you've been looking forward to, compared to like if you haven't really, it kind of would come off like that. Because one of the friends I took to see it kind of felt the same way. She's like, it's really cool, but she liked the movie, but she was like, Mysterio was like fine for me. And I think that's where it's going to hit people differently, is like what you wanted from Mysterio. I do think though, I mean, again, we talked about he's not dead. No one ever dies in this world. I think we're going to get more of him. And I think down the road, we're going to get a lot more to all these villains. Like, I still think Vulture's a better villain. 100%. I think Michael Keaton, I think the character was better written. I think the twist of him being the father was still a better twist, and something that I did not see coming whatsoever. When he opened that door, my jaw dropped. And I was like, oh my God. And but Spider-Man Far From Home doesn't, the moments that my jaw dropped were all those sequences. Because I felt like the film started good. I was like, I'm liking this. But the second that Mysterio's twist happened for me, while predictable, I was just like, this is what I wanted from the Mysterio character. This is what I needed from him. Because the only thing I wish they didn't change is in the comic version, he is a failed actor. And in this one, he's a failed scientist in a sense. Which I wish they would have just gone more at the actor type, because his exposition scene felt really actorish.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
As a director. And I know there's been some fun interviews where someone's like, come on, you've taken from it. Like when he's like, pew, pew, zap, zap, choo, choo, when he's doing like his whole directing thing. He said that he took that from a director he's worked with. And I'm like really curious to know which one, but he wouldn't name drop him. But so instead of taking the actor perspective, it looked like they took more of a director perspective with him.
Yeah, that's true. But he did, I mean, he was very flashy is the way that he was kind of, yeah, you're right. He was kind of the director. But I don't know, like it was just bland to me. It wasn't exciting. And I was especially, I think it was maybe hurt a little bit by the fact that Into the Spider-Verse was so great. And I was a little disappointed that we didn't end up getting
multiverse
Spider-Verse. I think that would have been so cool.
To be honest, so when they name dropped the multiverse, my prediction was that their end credit scene was going to be a nod to Toby and Andrew Garfield.
I know, that would have been so cool.
So, but I guess there is things that they have said that the multiverse is out there. I mean, Doctor Strange mentions that there is a multiverse, so it's out there. Will they hit it? Maybe down the road. I was a little bit disappointed too. I won't lie. I was kind of like, I wanted the multiverse. But I also did think how it was funny how Jake is like, these guys believe anything. After Endgame, they'll take anything, which is true, because if you really think about it, like that if that happened in our government today, and someone came out and they're like, yeah, these monsters are going to come out of anywhere, I think it would be, you know what I mean? Like people would believe it. And that's why I loved how he was like, like the eccentricness of his character where it's flashing back where he's like timing everything. He's like, how's my cape look? Are you steaming it? Is it good? I could be meeting the queen in hours now. It just really worked for me. And I think I was telling my friend though, I think if anyone else would have played Mysterio, I don't think it would have worked as well. Like if you would have gotten a nod of a Jake Gyllenhaal type actor to portray him, I think a lot of the issues that you're having would have totally hit me harder because I don't think it would have wrapped around me. Just because I think Jake is such an excellent actor. He portrayed, like, I usually just see Gyllenhaal depending on the film he plays, but I saw Quentin Beck. I didn't see Jake. And I think that's something he did so well with this character, is playing this eccentric version of him. It kind of felt like a version of him between Okja and like Nightcrawler for a weird sense, like a weird resemblance right in the middle. But I think Mysterio's kind of hit everyone a different way. He hit me really hard. Like, just again, I like him so much because of it's the character that I've always wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where it gets. There's not a lot to him per se, but I think just him as a character is really unique, and I think they could do a lot with him down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it is a pretty typical Tony Stark villain, and typical Iron Man villain of the former associate who gets kind of the angry man of business, who then sort of seeks revenge. I mean, they've all been kind of like that, all the Iron Man villains.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just felt like that they had an opportunity to do something a little bit less predictable with a little bit more heart. And but I did like all the teen shenanigans. So hopefully, and I did think. What do you think of the second post credit scene?
That's what I was just about to ask you too.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I can't imagine them retconning, like, I mean, this has been the year of Nick Fury, like Nick Fury everything, but I can't imagine them retconning Nick Fury's character like that far back.
So there's an interview with Cinema Blend with the director where he talks spoilers, and he says that Nick Fury and him switched out from his vision. They switched out after Endgame.
Okay, that I can deal with.
And if that's actually, I mean, for all we know, they retcon it again. You know what I mean? But because the biggest issue I have with Captain Marvel is that his eye got scratched out by a cat, and every time I watch Winter Soldier now, and he lifts up his eye patch, and he's like, "Never trust someone" or something. I'm just like, so you're talking about a cat, right? Like, so
well, alien cat,
an alien cat. But which can I say? Where the hell is Goose?
Yeah.
Where the hell is Goose?
Right.
Like, I think it would have been cool if we saw Nick Fury get up and Goose was right next to him.
Yeah.
But where is Goose? Like, did he die?
Yeah,
I
agree.
Missing? You could have had him in the last battle sequence.
I know. I was really surprised that he wasn't in Endgame at all.
Like, not even for like the smallest part. Like, he didn't have to be a big part, but wait, now I'm thinking back. Was Groot in Endgame?
Groot? Yeah, Groot was.
Was he in the last battle sequence?
Yeah, he was. Okay, I'm sure of it.
I mean, they're all in it.
I know he was. But there was hardly anybody from Captain Marvel in Endgame. And I was surprised how little they used Captain Marvel in general in Endgame.
I was surprised they barely used her, but I'm also thinking the reason that they didn't have a lot of those actors in it is because Captain Marvel wasn't even filmed yet. Like, Endgame was filmed way before that.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that was part of the reason why. But yeah, so that last end credit scene, it happened, and I hate my friend because he's been saying Nick Fury's a Skrull. Nick Fury's a Skrull. And then it happened, and he turns to me, he's like, I told you. I'm like, seriously, the one thing I didn't want you to do. Now, for a second, actually, when the girl changed, I was sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, this is going to be Chameleon from Spider-Man. Like, I was thinking, oh my God, they're doing Chameleon. And then it turned into a Skrull, and I was like, never mind. It's just a Skrull. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. I think it sets up some cool things. The thing about Nick Fury, though, on space, though, is it sets up S.W.O.R.D., which from the comics is like the S.H.I.E.L.D. counterpart in space. And it's like a giant space station, which is that's nice. I'm curious where they'll go with that. It's probably setting up the next Captain Marvel. That's kind of the way that I'm viewing it. But I was whatever about it. I was just, I truly hope like what the director was saying is that it truly isn't just like Talos, which I love Talos, like Ben Mendelsohn's great in the role, but I really hope like your worry is that it's not super far back. Like that's not him in Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Like I'd be pretty annoyed by that. But I guess the director was pointing out certain things that like he had Talos itch the eye, or Nick Fury itch his eye under the eye patch a lot in subtle moments. So he had certain things or certain dialogue moments where like the number one thing he did is the first time you see them in Morocco, I think. Maybe it was Morocco with the sand monster. You hear Maria Hill kept saying, "We need to stick on course. We need to stick on course. We need to stay on the mission." And he keeps talking about, "Oh, well, if we're here and there's a cloud and there's a face in the cloud, we should be here to talk about it." Because their number one mission was just to deliver the glasses. Like that was their only mission, and
Yeah.
they just couldn't do it. So, and then there's another thing where they're talking about sleeper cells, which is a huge Captain Marvel thing that Nick Fury wouldn't really know about. So there's some small things in there that I like that they kind of like tinkered around with, but I'm whatever about it. I just hope they don't go. I mean, like I would be physically mad if we found out later on that Hawkeye was a Skrull.
Yeah, I would be really mad too. So hopefully they don't get too cute with that.
Yeah, like I
Uh,
know there's a comic where it talks about like the Skrulls got switched out and stuff. Maybe that could work like down the road, like that the Skrulls took like say Hawkeye. Like it's a movie about like the new Avengers and Hawkeye's a Skrull. Maybe they just kidnapped him and switched him out because they said that there's good and bad ones out there. So I don't know what they're gonna do with it. You know, it's all up to them. But I please don't retcon any of that.
yeah, yeah, I agree. So I mean, it was a fun ending. It was a fun surprise, but yeah, I hope that they, like I said, don't get too cute with it because that's the danger, I guess, in introducing this time travel element, and there's other things going on, that like I'm not that somebody who worries that much about the continuity, honestly, as long as the movies are good, but it will make the movies not good if they get too convoluted and too caught up in all of that kind of thing. And I don't know. Just I guess in conclusion for me, this movie it just was kind of boring for me. It
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't. I don't know. All the villain stuff was just kind of like, maybe I've been there, done that. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
interesting to me, and maybe that's partly my own fault for not having read this comics. But I don't know. And so when people were so excited about it, I was so surprised. But I really enjoyed parts of it, but I just couldn't go fresh on it because I just didn't think it was very original.
Well, and the thing that you're saying, where you said that it's my fault for not reading the comic, that's not your fault. I mean, they should. I mean, you shouldn't have to read the comic to like a movie.
Yeah.
Like that's my biggest thing with it. And so like I think the way that you're coming off about it, you're totally right. You're totally in your right to feel that way. And I get it. I get it. I think I'm more in the minority where I think this is the Spider-Man film I've always wanted. Like this felt like it was straight from the comic book. Everything with Mysterio, everything like that. I think there are certain things that come off about it, and just as rewatches will occur, maybe it'll go down in my rank because this is right there with Spider-Verse for me. Even though I think Spider-Verse is probably I mean, it's not even probably, it's definitely a more creative and unique film than this one. Which, I mean, Spider-Verse, I went in thinking this is gonna be the dumbest thing ever. The animation looked cool, but an
Mm-hmm.
animated Spider-Man movie? Get out of here. Walk out of that film buzzing about it. And that was the same way about Spider-Man Far From Home. If I go into a film with like high expectations, it usually rarely meets it. But I
Yeah.
walked out of Spider-Man Far From Home freaking out about it.
Yeah.
And like even Avengers Endgame, I didn't walk out freaking out about it. Like I walked out and I was like, that was so good, but like I wasn't like I didn't call one of my random friends and I just vented about the movie because I was freaking out so much about it. But and that's where like there's only been a couple Marvel films that I've done that with, which is this one and Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the
Yeah.
Galaxy is still like really high up there for me, but like there's certain movies that just like hit me a little bit harder and hit other people differently. But everything you're saying, I totally get, and I think a lot of people are they're gonna take sides, but whatever. That's the thing about film; it's all subjective. Let's all remember that they're movies. If you have anytime you get one of those big comments, it's just someone going crazy. It's like, couldn't you go crazy about something more serious in the world? Maybe. So
I mean, and it's fine, but I don't know. It was just surprising to me. And yeah, I watched your ranking video. You had this above, I think it was your
Yep,
number one. You had it as your number one.
it
And I was
was.
like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah, but
mean,
that's
a
interesting.
year from now that could change. A year from now that could change. I mean, rankings always switch out for me. Like
Yeah,
Homecoming used to be my number one favorite, and then Spider-Verse was. And I think it's just how this film hit me, and
yeah,
I think I relate harder to this film than I do Spider-Verse. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of I think a lot of it comes down to relating to a character. If you relate to a character, that's going to like change a lot of how you feel about a movie. Which another one that we both kind of differ is Long Shot. I relate a lot to Seth Rogen's character in that movie some way, and I think that's why I love that movie so much.
yeah.
And some people like didn't get that same relatability, which is fine. Besides the whole part with his oh boy, that was too much.
That was just the jacket. I couldn't deal with that jacket.
I If he took out the jacket, Rachel would have loved Long Shot.
I,
Put it on the poster. Take the jacket off, Seth Rogen.
but I did actually like that movie. I did.
Yeah, I know.
I went fresh on. I just didn't think it was the greatest romantic comedy ever made.
Yeah.
But yeah, the jacket. I'm saying that something going on with indie films this year with that awful yellow turtleneck and books.
Oh my god, yeah. The whole time I was watching, I'm like, please.
I'm like, stop. But
Take me out of
anyway.
the movie.
Yeah, so it's interesting. For me, this is definitely in the like just the sort of like I guess pleasant enough bottom tier kind of predictable, a little bit boring bottom tier Marvel movies for me.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's not awful. I didn't want to die watching it or something like Green Lantern or something, but it just wasn't great for me. But yeah, so yeah, I probably have it right around. I mean, because I also not a fan of the second Guardians movie.
Oh, see,
Um,
I'm whatever about the second Guardians. I
yeah,
like it, but it's definitely not as good as the first one.
I didn't like it, and it's for a lot of different reasons. But anyway, so yeah, it would definitely be in that bottom grouping for me.
Mhm.
And so, be curious to know what you guys think of the different perspectives that we talked about. If you're listening, put in the comment section or on Twitter. Just talk with us and let's talk it out. It'll be fun. And thanks so much for coming on and talking about this movie and sharing your point of view. I think it's been really interesting. We had a good discussion, and so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm glad that I was finally able to come talk with you and talk Spider-Man of all things.
Yeah.
Next time we'll have to talk rom-coms and
Yes.
and what
Yes.
makes a great jacket in a film that people should wear.
That's right.
But thank you
Well,
again so much for watching this or
yeah, we'll
watching this.
definitely
Thank you
do
for
another
having
one
me.
soon. And so, where can people find you on your channel and on social media and all that fun stuff?
You guys can find me on YouTube at Zach Pope. Just type in Zach Pope, and I should be the first one that comes up. And then on Twitter, just follow me at Pope the King. I'm usually tweeting all sorts of stuff. And if you tweet me about Spider-Man, maybe I'll reply back. Maybe. Just be nice about it to all of us, because that's the thing. We had different opinions, and we're having fun talking about it.
Yeah.
And you can do that too. That goes for any type of movie, no matter what the movie is. Because I have a feeling the next film that's going to be polarizing is Joker. I have a big feeling that Joker's going to be polarizing. To everyone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
that's
we're
going to be
changing the world. What do you
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Everybody it's part of it should be part of the fun of it, but often at times it's not. But yeah, make sure you're following Zach. He has great content. He works really, really hard. And so definitely check that out. Make sure you're following the podcast on iTunes. And if you are listening on iTunes, if you can give us your ratings and reviews, really appreciate that. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that. And I also have our patron group that we just started with Hallmarkies. That's really fun. And we talk about not just Hallmark movies on there, but all kinds of movies. It's really fun. So check that out. Information in the description section. And I have the merch store also. You can be an animation junkie, which is a lot of fun. So a lot of stuff going on. And we really appreciate your feedback in the comment section. So check that out. And we'll talk again soon. Let us know if you have anything that you would like us to talk about, any other Spider-Man movies or anything else. We'd love your suggestions. So thanks so much. And thanks so much, Zach. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.